Parents of Reddit, what is the most embarrassing thing your child has done in public? Not me but my mom. When my brother was little, him and my mom went to the grocery store, and I guess he wasn't getting his way. He cowered and loudly said, "Mom, don't hit me." My mom would never hit any of her children, but I think she might have thought about it that day. When my son was 4, he loved to wail on his younger brother, as siblings do, and so was constantly being scolded that it was not okay to hit. So then he gets in trouble, and what comes out of his mouth? "Just don't hit me, Dada. It's not okay to hit. It's not okay to hit." When my daughter was 2.5, my son was born. Cue 3-year-old daughter noticing son has different parts. After intense interrogation, I've covered boys have different bits than girls. But what's it called? Boy bit stinkle. Multiple generic non-penis words were attempted. She wasn't having it. So I said it's a penis. That was that. She was happy with her new knowledge. Roll on the weekly food shop, where she told the young male cashier, "You have a penis." Poor lad went redder than a tomato. 3-year-old grinned pleased with herself. She's 14 and this still haunts me. I was heavily pregnant with my second kid and my oldest was 2 at the time. We were at my OB/GYN appointment waiting to be called. This random guy walks out with his wife from where the doctor rooms are, and my oldest jumps out his chair, screams, "Daddy! Daddy!" and runs to the random guy. This guy looked mortified and awkward and said, "Sorry buddy. I'm not." My son looked nothing like this guy and it was extremely embarrassing trying to waddle up to this guy and try to pry my 2-year-old off a random man. When I was 3, I asked a random man who looked a bit like my dad for a donut, and my dad asked me what was going on, and I turned around to see my real dad. One of my daughters, around age 3 or 4, was with her somewhat socially conservative grandmother. Mind your P's and Q's, be polite, be on your best behavior, etc. In a small town, everybody knows everybody. Grocery store. Grandma introduces my daughter to someone she's known in town for decades. "Jenny, this is Ms. Longtime Friend." The friend bends down, extends a hand to my daughter and says, "Hello. I've known your grandma forever. I'm Ms. Longtime Friend." My daughter takes her hand and says, "Hello, I'm Jenny," and then, turning around and bending over, grabs her butt cheeks and, doing her best Ace Ventura imitation, says, "And this is my talking booty." I'm fairly confident that, 20 years later, I have yet to be forgiven for allowing my daughter to have seen that movie. Edit. Hey, thanks for the silver. Smile. I was with my daughter in a Walmart. She was about 5 at the time. She asked if she could try on a skirt and I said yes, but afterward refused to put her pants back on, demanding she gets the skirt. After multiple times of refusing her demand, she took off the skirt but still refused to put her pants back on, crying and screaming. So here is an adult male close to 30 carrying a 5 crying screaming girl under one arm while carrying her pants in the other hand and marching out of the Walmart. Interestingly, no one tried to stop me or alerted the security or police. When I was dress shopping for my wedding, I brought my mom and my sister, who also brought my 3-year-old nephew because her husband was working. I came out of the dressing room to show them the dress I wanted, when we realized my nephew had been too quiet. We looked around and he had his back to one of the full-length mirrors, pants around his ankles, and he was mooning himself. My sister wanted to die from embarrassment, but I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard. I got mooned by a random little boy when I walked into the toilets once. I'm female. His mom had brought him into the toilets with her and had gone into her own cubicle. The little guy decided to pee with the door wide open, so when I walked in, he was doing a butters, pants around his ankles, shirt held up. So freaking cute. It gets better. The little boy is done. There's a bit of a cue. He peers under his mom's door and loudly yells, "Are you doing a big poo?" That was it for me. I was laughing my ass off. Poor woman was so embarrassed when she came out. Cute kid. I hope he didn't get in too much trouble. Not my child but my little cousin. Every summer I'd spend 2 to 3 weeks with my aunts and cousins. One of them was Kay and we were really close, even though we were 4 years apart. Well, she had a pretty traumatic childhood and was unfortunately wetting the bed at age 8, much to her embarrassment. I was 12 and just started my period, but I needed more pads, so we went to Walmart. They went one way to get her some pull-ups and I went the other for my pads, and I found them in line. My sweet baby cousins runs up to me, in the middle of dozens of people, and screams, "You still pee the bed too?" Turns out they told her I went to get big girl pull-ups for our sleepover to make her feel better about it all. I said yes because fuck it, I don't actually live around there and I adore that girl. But I then ran away after tossing my pads at my aunt and waited in the car. We still cry laughing about this 15 years later. Was at the community swimming pool with my oldest son when he was 6 or 7. One of the people in the pool, who we didn't know, was a guy who was probably north of 400 pounds, massive fellow. My son swam right up to him and asked, "Do you know about the X-Men? Because you look just like a guy who is in X-Men comics. He's called the Blob. That's so cool." The guy gave him a confused look and I grabbed my son by the shoulder and pulled him away. I wanted to be proud of my son for his comic book reference, but I had to swallow that and explain to my son that he just might have possibly hurt the guy's feelings and that in the future he shouldn't compare people to the Blob. When I just had my second baby, I had a coil fitted. For this I had to go to the doctors, which involved taking both the baby and my 2-year-old son. I left my son in the pushchair in the room with me and the male nurse, and one of the receptionists came in to keep him entertained. I thought I had gotten away with it and that he had no idea what was going on. Oh, how naive I once was. I had to sit in the waiting room for 15 minutes afterwards as I had low blood pressure. I'm sitting there trying to keep him entertained. Baby thankfully slept through the whole thing. Old man next to us tries to engage my son in conversation about the toy cars in the waiting area. Suddenly my son bursts into tears. The old man instinctively asked, "What's wrong?" This was the moment when my son shouted, "That man did something to my mummy's bum." I still don't know why the ground didn't open up and swallow me, because I damn well wanted it to. Okay, so I'm writing this on behalf of my parents who don't use Reddit. This happens when I was quite young, maybe 5 or 6. Now at this time there were 2 companies that ran trains from my local train station, Virgin Trains and London Midlands. London Midlands trains took about 45 minutes to get to London, where Virgin Trains took 30. Virgin Trains also looked much cooler to a 5-year-old. Because of this I thought Virgin Trains were the greatest thing ever. One day me and my family were on a trip to London on a busy train. As we were going through the journey I loudly proclaimed so the whole carriage could hear, "I know where virgins go at night." My parents, trying avoid the stares from the whole carriage, and probably hoping my answer would not make it worse, asked, "Where do they go?" I promptly responded, "Into the tunnels." My parents have never been more embarrassed. Okay. So, I was at the grocery store with my youngest, M4-ish. There was a man there with who I am assuming was his occupational therapist. He appeared to be a recent lower leg amputee who was learning to navigate in his changed world. I add that he looked uncomfortable. My son saw this man and became very concerned. He yelled, Mister, who stole your leg?" "Mom. Someone cut his leg." "Who cut your leg, mister?" I've never been so mortified in my life. I apologized to the therapist and the man. She gave me an understanding smile and he kept to himself. I tried to explain to my son, quietly, and on another aisle, that sometimes things happen, and how all bodies are different and awesome, but he was so genuinely and loudly concerned. That was way more embarrassing than when that same child at 2 announced to the whole Target washroom that I have a beautiful vagina. I was the kid in this scenario, and it's still a favorite family story. I was 4 years old, visiting a buffet-style restaurant with my mom, and I needed to go to the bathroom. For context, I'm male. Mom decided it was time to experiment, let me try the men's restroom in a public restaurant on my own for the first time. I went in, did my business, came back out to her in the middle of this buffet line that wrapped around the corner past the restroom doors. To hear her description, my eyes got huge, and I literally shouted in the middle of this line of random strangers, "Mommy, There's a different kind of potty in there. Apparently, 4-year-old me had never seen a urinal before. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Consider subscribing to see more Reddit reading videos. Have an awesome day.